Everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to the Mashiach Matters class. Excuse me we were a little bit off the time. Time is usually 12:15, and now we're doing it at 1:45. Just a lot happened over here over the last few hours, in the last 2 days. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank all those who participated and helped us out on our special fundraiser, charity, 36-hour marathon. You were unbelievable and brought us tremendous success and help. May Hashem bless you all. We're about to begin and continue our class on matters regarding the redemption. So let's learn. I just want to get a chumash. Okay. Excuse our appearance. They're doing some painting over here to make the center look all fresh and nice. So that's the renovation here. Okay. Give me just 1 minute and I open up the chumash to where we're holding. So the pasuk is talking about Yitzchak living in Gror. We're holding pasuk Vav, Perek Chavav, pasuk Vav, chapter 26, verse number 6. It says in the pasuk Vayeshev Yitzchak beGror that Yitzchak is living in Gror, settled in Gror. Remember, Yitzchak wanted to leave the land of Israel, and God told him that he's not allowed to. He should stay in the land of Eretz Yisrael because he's holy. He was sanctified as a sacrifice, and therefore he wasn't allowed to leave the boundaries of Israel. We spoke about it in the last class. And now it says, so Yitzchak settled in this place called Gror, which was kind of, the Philistines lived there, and but it was considered the land of Israel. And what happens over there when Yitzchak is living in Gror? And the people asked regarding his wife. All of our matriarchs were very beautiful, and they always attracted unwanted attention. They were very modest, but at the same time, they couldn't conceal their beauty, and there was always undesirable attention, which reflects the spiritual concept of the idea that holiness, because it is very attractive. And when there's something immensely holy, it has a lot of energy, and the unholy seeks to gravitate and to pull and to what we might call steal or derive that which extra power from that which is holy. So they asked about Rivka, meaning who is she? Is she marriageable? What's her story? And Yitzchak said, because as Rashi already told us earlier, that the people in that time were at least still impacted by the flood, and they had certain morality in that they were afraid to abduct a married woman. So in order to protect himself, Yitzchak did what his father did, and he said, she's my sister. He was afraid to say Ishti, that she's his wife. In other words, Yitzchak says she's my sister, which means he didn't say explicitly she's not married, but she's not my wife. Why did he say that? Because he was afraid to say she's my wife. Pen Yaharguni, maybe they will kill him. Anshe HaMakayim Al Rivka, because maybe the people of the city, of the place, will kill him about Rivka. See, they had a very simple solution to deal with their prohibition against having relations with a married woman, that you make the woman unmarried. And if it takes putting a bullet through the head of someone, that's what they would do. So for that reason, in order to protect himself, Yitzchak said she's my sister, so they would at least leave him alone. Kitayvas Marihi, because she was very, very good looking. So we learn one more verse. Now when Yitzchak, so the beginning, of course, he tried to behave outward to the outside like brother and sister. But after a while, they let their guard down. Why? because it ended up being that some time passed. And the king of Pelishtim looked out of the window of his palace. And he saw that Yitzchak simply means was being frivolous with Rivka, his wife. Rashi says it means that he saw Yitzchak having marital relations with her. And as a result of that, he realized that she couldn't be his sister. And therefore he called, that means she's not a sister, she's his wife. So then we'll see that Avimelech has complaints to Yitzchak. By you saying that she's my sister, you put us in jeopardy, because we could have done this terrible sin of adultery. Okay, we'll see later the dialogue. But these are the three psukim I want to discuss, I want to learn today. So the first pasuk says that Yitzchak lived in Gerar. Mayeshav Yitzchak beGerar, that Yitzchak lived in Gerar. So this is referring to, now, even though Yitzchak is living inside the land of Eretz Yisrael, he didn't go out of the land of Israel yet, as we learned earlier that God did not allow him. And I remember last week or 2 weeks ago when we gave the last class, we learned that the significance of that means that it's referring to the time when the entire world will become Eretz Yisrael, the time of Mashiach. So, in other words, the only one of our forefathers who doesn't go to exile is Yitzchak. Avram leaves. Yaakov went to exile. Yitzchak kind of he belongs in Eretz Yisrael the whole time. However, that means he's not in a exiled state. But the very fact that Yitzchak is living in a place that's semi-Israel, in other words, it's called Gerar, and Pelishtim are the rulers of that place. So this is like compared to living mamish, literally in the land of Israel completely. This is to a certain degree referred to as Galus. So Yitzchak's dwelling in Gerar is actually referring to a foreshadowing. It is a little taste of the period of exile and the period of darkness. And it's hinted to the idea that Yitzchak is the one that's dwelling in Gerar. Because Yitzchak, we know, on some level, Yitzchak represents harshness. Because Avram represents chesed, kindness, and Yitzchak represents gevura. So Vayeshev Yitzchak, when the Yitzchak elements, when the gevura elements, when the judgments kick in, when do the judgments kick in? That's the time of darkness, the time of exile. So the pasuk says, Bigrar, that is in Gerar. So there's a very deep explanation on this. We know that the reason Hashem scattered the Jewish people into exile is the Talmud says the only reason God had scattered, he had other ways he could punish us. The only reason he scattered us amongst the nations is so that the Jewish people should be able to collect all the sparks of holiness that are scattered everywhere, and through that bring a rectification to the entire world. So now, and how is that accomplished? So that's by exile. And that's what we mean converts. Converts doesn't only mean in the literal sense, but the converts means these sparks of holiness that are now reattached to the holy. They were separated in the process that has to do with it. At the beginning of creation, there was some kind of a primordial collapse, and energies that are holy and very godly became disconnected from their source and fragmented and scattered everywhere. And our work is to put the pieces back together again. And that's the reason we go to exile. That's what we mean converts. So the meaning over here now is like this. Vayeshev Yitzchak, the Jewish people in the time of exile were called Yitzchak in the sense that it's a time of darkness. And the reason, because Yitzchak is harshness, the reason Vayeshev Yitzchak, the reason we sit in an exiled state, Bigrar, in addition to it meaning the name of a place, the capital of the Philistine area over there, it has another meaning. Yitzchak, which means a reference to the future Jewish people during the time of exile, live in exile, bigrar, in order to be gorer. Gorer means to assemble, to pull together. When you pull something, it's called ligror. You pull a chair, you pull a table, it's called being gorer at the table. So we are pulling. It's in order to pull and drag, so to speak, all the sparks of holiness and bring them back into Kedusha. So says the Kol Yaakov, which is one of the early the Novominsker Rebbe. Anyways, but then it says, it continues, that the whole story that Yitzchak claims that Rivka is his sister, but in truth, she was his wife. Avimelech notices this. He sees Yitzchak doing with Rivka, being intimate with Rivka, and as a result of that, he finds out that Yitzchak wasn't so honest with him. Okay. Now the pasuk says Yitzchak mitzachek, that Yitzchak is laughing as Rivka Ishtay. So again, the meaning of mitzachek over here means he was bringing her enjoyment, which is the idea of an intimacy. But there is something much deeper over here. And it's also going to continue to explain this idea of what's the whole purpose of the exile. But we're going to take Yitzchak and change the definition of the meaning of Yitzchak. In the beginning of the class, I told you that Yitzchak is associated with Gevura, with harshness, and therefore represents the times of harshness, difficulties, and challenge. But there's another meaning to Yitzchak. Yitzchak also means laughter. All right? Sarah called him Yitzchak because Yitzchak means to laugh. So if Yitzchak is laughter, and the word Yitzchak stands for not laughter now, but laughter that will be. Future laughing. Because the word, whenever you have a yud at the beginning of the word, it makes it the future. So Yitzchak mitzachek means that Yitzchak, the laughter of Yitzchak, so which laughter are we talking about? The laughter of Yitzchak is related to Rivka, his wife. So what does that mean? So, and does it have any connection to the earlier thing that I just told you, that Yitzchak living of Gerar is a time of exile and darkness? Here we're talking about laughter, it's the total opposite. Laughter is an indication of pleasure and delight. So how do you reconcile the two? And the answer is that the two are deeply, deeply related, and the two are deeply, deeply, deeply connected. So what is the connection and what is the relationship between these two elements? The idea is like this. As I mentioned, Yitzchak means to laugh, but not laughing now, but laughing in the future. So what is that idea? It's referring to the tremendous, tremendous laughter that is going to be in the end of days. As the verse tells us, "Oz yamalei schayk pinu," then our mouths will be filled with laughter. When Mashiach will come, we will laugh. Or it says in another pasuk, we say it in Eshes Chayil, "Vatischak," she will laugh, liyom acharon, in the end of days we will laugh. Now the world isn't necessarily a world of laughter. There's still lots of, or at least for thousands of years, there's lots of darkness and hardship and misery. But after we're done purifying the world in the end of days, there will come the Messianic era, the time of Mashiach, and then the world is going to be filled with laughter. We're going to laugh. And why are we all going to be laughing? Because we're going to be influenced by God's laughter. When Mashiach will come, Hashem will laugh, which means it will be revealed the unbelievable, infinite sensation, pleasure, and delight that God has from all of our service. The sum totality of all of our work that we did for thousands of years during the duration of darkness will finally be Yitzchak, there will be laughter. And when it says Yitzchak, V'hine Yitzchak, so it's referring to that great laughter. And the pasuk is saying that where is the laughter coming? Mitzachek, Yitzchak mitzachek, where is the laughter of Yitzchak coming from? Eis Rivka Ishtay, it's his wife, Rivka, that produced, stimulated, and developed that laughter, and brought about that laughter. But to appreciate this, and to understand this, so Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi, in Torah Oyer, the Alter Rebbe says as follows. He says, there is another pasuk that says, Tzchoik asa li Elokim. Laughter Hashem has made for me. Hashem made me laugh. When Yitzchak was born. So what is the deeper meaning? That God made me laugh. God did a miracle. But he says, no, then why does it say the name Elokim? It should say Tzchok Asali Hashem. Elokim is the name of concealment. If God does a miracle, that means that Hashem is being open with us. So it should say Hashem's transcendental name that is beyond nature, from where miracle comes from, which is the Tetragrammaton, the Yud Kei Vav Kei. How come it says Tzchok Asali Elokim? So he explains it as follows, that the name of Elokim is a cover-up on the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. Really, Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the essence of Hashem's name, his more essential name, represents God's truth or inner truth, is really responsible for all of creation and all of existence, which means that God himself, as he transcends everything, is directly involved in emanating and creating all of creation, bringing us into existence, and we're all completely nullified to him every moment. We don't have any existence without him. Our entire being is nothing other than an expression of him. And therefore, truth, we should really feel and sense how we have no existence other than our Creator creating us. The reason why we feel differently, we don't feel the creative life force that's emanating upon us every second, that is flowing to us every second to create and to sustain us, is because God creates us through a massive series of filters. And the various different screens and filters diminish and block and reduce Hashem's light, that it's less and less and less. The consequential result is that the creation begins to feel itself separate, disconnected, and as a self-sufficient being, unrelated to God. And that's why we can have such a strong self-awareness and self-importance, to the point that, God forbid, it's even possible for a created being to begin to entertain the thought that he or she is not a creation. We live on forever. We exist with absoluteness. And even more so, if I have no God, then I am God. Which means my life is devoted to me, myself, and I. And that's the greatest lie, because that's not the truth. Truth is, every second you owe your entire existence to a conscious being who is conscious of you and is deliberately creating you for a purpose that serves his interests. But we don't feel that, and we don't sense that. How is it possible? If he's giving us our everything, every moment that we don't feel it, the reason that's possible is because, as we said earlier, he creates us and conceals his light. The concealment that conceals the energy from being revealed to us, that concealment is called Elokim. It's through another name of his, the name of Elokim. The name of Elokim is the name of Gevura. Gevura is the name of constriction and hiding. So it hides the creative power from being revealed on the creation. And the name of Elokim has many, many series. It has 120 different manifestations, as it means the letters of the Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem of the name of Elokim can be rearranged 120 different ways. Every single time these letters are rearranged, they create a denser block on God. Now it's interesting, the gematria, the numeric value of the word Elokim is 86, which 86 is the same numeric value of Hateva, which means nature, or the nature. Why? Because the idea, what makes the world appear to be a self-sufficient entity, it's because the world operates through a certain natural system that is very consistent and very predictable. The laws of nature. If every day the whole setup of the creation would be completely different, and we would have no idea how things are operating, and it would, on complete randomness, meaning it would look a complete different system every day, then we will realize that, and it would always work, right? We would realize that there is a master of ceremonies over here who's directing it. But since things are that way for thousands of years, and it appears for millions of years, we begin to think that this is, this is just the way it is. So where does that come from? From Teva is related to the concealment of the name of Elokim. But what's the purpose of God creating a world, putting all of that in to create a world, and then in order for him to be anonymous? Why would he do that? What would be the purpose of a creation that doesn't recognize its creator? And the answer is, Hashem decided that he is going to experience a pleasure that we can't understand and fathom, and that pleasure and that delight is a derivative, or comes from, is stimulated through the act of taking the ignorant element of creation and enlightening it. In other words, when that which is dark and concealing and blocking on the divine truth, on God's truth, is that gives away to godly revelation. When a created being who is full of ego, full of self-centeredness, bends and surrenders their ego to do something godly, to do something beyond themselves, to serve something higher than themselves, that's called the transformation of something to nothing. It's called the transformation of darkness to light. That gives God a pleasure that is, we can't understand. That's the ultimate pleasure. And for that reason, God created the entire creation, made the world be so disconnected, concealing and blocking on his truth, so that we should fight our way back to embracing our Creator and our Maker and serve him. And it's in the billions of choices that human beings have to make every day, whether they will do what their heart desires or they will live for something deeper and something higher and more meaningful and more truer, and serve something higher through acts of kindness, charity, giving, taking care of another, and so on and so forth. This is the purpose of all of creation, and this will eventually, in the end of days, bring about the greatest pleasure. Now, just like in the middle of any kind of a work, you do a work. We have our painter over here who's painting our place. And in the middle of the work, it doesn't really, you don't have pleasure yet because you're in the midst of something. So you're just involved in the work and in the toil, but you're not feeling, you're not experiencing the pleasure. But when the work is all done and you step back and you look at the painting, you look at the house freshly painted or whatever it is, you sit back and you go, this feels so good. So the same is also with God, that the pleasure we don't feel yet. At this point, we just see the work. We see the toil, but the pleasure will come. And that's the tremendous pleasure. And that's why King David says that when Mashiach will come, in the end of days, our mouths will be filled with laughter. All of creation, we will not believe all the goodness that we produced and how holy and special this world has become. And that is the idea of what the verse says, Tzchoik asali alikim. Why? Because it's a novelty. It's unexpected. The natural course of a human being is to be selfish. The natural course of creations that don't know the Creator is to continue living in denial and in rebellion to their Creator. That's the natural state. When we act unnaturally, it causes laughter. You know, when we go to a show and we see acrobats doing like these most craziest things, and we all laugh. Why do we laugh? Because it's unbelievable. But when you see a parrot talking, or you have people would always go watch, in the olden days, would watch animal fights. It would create a tremendous charge of sensation, of delight. The reason for that is, and that causes a pleasure, because it's unusual, because it's unexpected. It's a spectacle. So what's God's delight in creating the world when what is unexpected happens? And what's unexpected? We who are created with super egos, when we, for a moment, move past ourselves, it creates the block, the power of God to conceal himself, that will result ultimately into laughter. Tzchoik, laughter, asali alukim, the Elokim has made for me. So now once we understand that, now we'll also appreciate the idea of what it says over here, that Yitzchak, Isaac, Yitzchak means the laughter of the future. It says he was laughing from Rivka, his wife. Who is Rebecca? Who is Rivka? Rivka, in one of the meanings of the word Rivka, it means an animal. It doesn't just mean a regular animal. It actually means, Rivka means, in Hebrew, it's when you have a few animals joined together by like a yoke. When they would take animals out to plow, they would take like three cows, and they would put some kind of a yoke on their neck, and it would make the cows come together as one cohesive group, and now they can plow the field, they can pull the plow. All together, they have much greater strength. So what does it represent? It represents Rivka stands for animals joining together. Now here's an interesting idea. When we say that our job is the rectification of the world, to fix the elements of the world, transform that which is dark and blocking of God, transform that into holiness, transform that into something that expresses Hashem, expresses the Creator. Right? So that's what we said. Where do we begin with? Who do we start with? We start with ourselves, because we're all, in addition to having a beautiful godly soul, we all possess also an animalistic, egotistical being. That's our animal soul, our animal consciousness. That animal inside of us needs to be rectified, needs to be brought to sacrifice, to a state of surrendering itself to Hashem, surrendering itself to God. That's the meaning of Rivka. But here's the interesting thing. Rivka doesn't only mean the animal. Rivka means the animals when a few animals are together. And let's explain that. See, the nature of animals is not to be together. If you take 3 cows and you put them out into a field, each one is going to go off to their own and graze. Why? Because an animal is obsessed with one thing, with being comfortable. Right? It wants to eat, it wants to sleep, it wants to mate, it wants to do anything that's just going to make it happy. So it's primarily driven with one thing, selfish interests. That's an animal. We as humans that have a higher consciousness, we have an ability to do things together. We can get together, because that's the uniqueness of the human soul. But let's go a little deeper. Within the human itself, we have an animal soul and we have a godly soul, a higher soul. Our joining together is to really be connected to other people, which means that you are truly concerned about the well-being of someone else and care about someone else, not about yourself. That comes from your godly soul. Because a godly soul is not dense, it's not thick, it's not full of itself. In a sense, all of our godly souls are really one soul. So we're all joined together. So in order to really be able to connect, we have to connect to the godliness inside of us. Our animal soul, on the other hand, each one gravitates towards itself. If I'm enjoying a chicken sandwich, I'm really uncomfortable if you come and eat the second half of my chicken sandwich. Unless I believe, from my animal soul's perspective, unless I believe that if I let you have the other half of my chicken sandwich, then maybe tomorrow when I'm going to be hungry, I'll be able to take a half of your chicken sandwich. Or I believe that it's worth it for me to have your friendship. Because if I have your friendship, then when I need a favor from you and I need to borrow money, you're going to help me out. So that means that I'm really not connecting to you. I'm not really giving. When I'm giving, I'm really taking. I'm thinking about myself. So our animal, that's the nature of the animal. The nature of the animal is each one is only thinking of their own because it's full of ego. And in the egotistical drive, we are all fragmented, separated, and disconnected. What's the work that we spoke about earlier? When we allow our higher godly consciousness, and we aren't happy with the fact that we have a higher godly consciousness, but we introduce our higher godly consciousness into our animalistic, everyday, regular, ordinary being, then we can take the animal inside of us and join it together with another animal. In other words, only when the animal is surrendered to something higher will it join forces with another animal. That's the idea. So when we spoke about earlier, the rectification, which comes as a result of humbling the ego and bringing things into a state of surrender to God, it finds its ultimate expression when we can take the animal and join different animals together and so on and so forth, which means it's in a state of surrender to something higher. That's what the verse is saying. In order for Yitzchak, now, for the fact that your soul is in unity with others, your godly soul, that doesn't cause God to laugh, because that's natural. That's what souls do naturally. It's not like something that is unexpected. It's regular. Yes, souls cluster together because they have no ego. It's when two animals, you see two animals and there's, there's one female and there's two bulls. They'll kill each other, right? They're on each other, they're fighting, because each one wants it for themselves. And the same is also on a carcass. They'll fight and kill each other, because don't take away my meal. So we in ourselves also have that to a certain degree. And the rectification is to take that which is separate, living in separate consciousness, and elevate it so that I can actually, not just from my godly soul, but even my animal soul, should be extremely happy and satisfied with sharing dinner with you, because I don't need everything for myself. I'm surrendered. I realize my life is not about me. My life is about serving something beyond me. So I can share my food, I can share my money, I can share my time, I can share, because it's not about me. It's about us. And it's about all of us connecting to the singular truth that's the truth of all of existence and all of creation. And that's the idea of Yitzchak Mitzachek. And this is really, going back, this is what we do in exile. And when exile is a time when our animal souls are very strong, because our godly souls are diminished. And we live in a world that is so fragmented and dark. But we have to realize that these struggles in everyday life ultimately bring about the final and greatest pleasure of all pleasures, which is the pleasure of Hashem, which is going to be in the end of time. And that's all the tremendous laughter that happens, but it happens through Rivka, his wife. Okay, everyone. So now everyone be well. Bezrat Hashem, next week, Thursday, 12:15, we will continue this class. I might be out of town because of Hanukkah. Check out the email. Or maybe I'll give you a better idea. I can actually do the class even if I'm out of town from wherever I'm going to be. So I'm not going to be flying. I'm just going to be I hopefully will. I don't want to cancel the class, so hopefully we'll be able to do the class next week, Thursday. Everyone should have a really happy Hanukkah and only good. Thanks.